shortly after college, 1990, joined the O'Keefe Company, which is an independent sales group out of Minneapolis. They represented 10 or 15 really nice toy companies back in the 80s and 90s. I was selling the smaller accounts since I was the new guy on the block. I was selling smaller accounts, product lines like Funrise, Pressman, Racing Champions, New Bright were probably our most Terratoy, a really great lineup where I got to meet some really outstanding people. My first day on the job was at New York Toy Fair in 1990.
How did you make it out to LA?
Well, one of the great companies that I worked for was Funrise, as I mentioned, and I had done a lot of business with the little accounts that I had. I got to know the team pretty well. I got to know Arnie Rubin, the president and founder of Funrise, a little bit socially through a few trips to LA. And he sent a fax across, yes, I said fax, in 1993 and said, we're looking for a national sales manager if you know somebody who might be interested. And I don't think he was necessarily fishing from the rep groups. I think he was looking for someone probably from another toy company. And my boss at the time, John O'Keefe, said to me, he goes, so have you called Arnie yet and asked him about the job? And I thought it was funny that my current boss was telling me to go find a new job, essentially. And lucky enough for me, about a day and a half later, Arnie doesn't take very long to make decisions on anything. We worked out a great deal, and I ended up spending the next 15 years of my life working there for him and getting my family started there.
Was this feeling that you felt as you made it to LA and felt pretty lucky, felt fortunate? Can you describe that feeling, what ultimately led you to signing up with the Big Brother program?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess in general, it was actually something that I had thought about even living back in Minneapolis. And it's a little bit trickier when you're thinking about getting a little brother or joining the association when you already have a built-in family and all your friends in town. You're certainly busier with your current family and my sisters and my parents and all of my friends. But it felt like something that I would think about doing someday. When I got to Los Angeles and so many great people were helping me out and just helping me along the way, Arnie being one of them, obviously, but all the other people I was working with at Funrise and all the people I had met. After a couple years there, it was definitely time for me to give something back. And that was really just as simple as it is. I've had so many great leaders and great mentors in my life. It was just time for me to try to pass that baton to someone else and try to help someone else. So I think it was probably like late 1995, I called up the Los Angeles Catholic Big Brother Association and inquired about it, the process, and got signed up and started going over there and interviewing, and they have to do background checks. And
what made you pick me?
Well, I'd like to say it was the beard and the charming personality, but it was just random luck, quite frankly. Back then, I'm not sure what the process is these days, but it was as simple as they gave me, once I had done the background check and everything checked out, they said, what age child are you looking for? We can narrow it down that way. And then they just literally handed me a stack of files of probably 150 kids that unfortunately at the time were looking for some sort of mentor in their life. Their moms, likely their moms, because in most cases they probably didn't have a father role model. They were looking for somebody. I was looking for someone older. I wasn't interested in 7 or 8. 11, 12 would have made sense. I was also intrigued by the fact that you had been waiting for 4 or 5 years. So it was like, okay, this kid's been waiting long enough. Let's try to find a break for him. And Rostislav Starobinski sounded like somebody who I might want to hang out with someday.
Hey,
yeah.
Back to Arnie. He got this reputation in the industry for always treating and putting the customer first, always doing what's right by his employees. Can you give us a first-hand experience of Arnie's love and appreciation for his people?
Yeah, I mean, Arnie always had the reputation, even before I worked for him, you just really enjoyed going to their showroom. There was nothing stressful about going to their showroom, and his team was always really good. Even for the 3.5, 4 years that I worked for the O'Keefe Company, going to the Funrise showroom was always the highlight of the day. The right people, the right team, and when I got the opportunity to work for Arnie, he essentially said, look, you can run your business the way you want to run it and make any decision you feel comfortable making, but I'm here to help you along the way. And from that day forward, I had his 100% support, and he always thought about the sales reps first. He always thought about the customers first, and really ran his business on how do we treat other people and how do we treat ourselves. And it was very common at Funrise. People would always be asking us, you know, how do you hang on to your people? Well, it started with Arnie and started with the culture that he had there, and just the way he treated people and the way he kept them around and made them feel part of something bigger than themselves. People wanted to be part of something bigger than what they were doing by themselves, and that's why the team got so good and so strong, and everyone stuck around for so long.
Yeah. Ryan, there's a hypothesis or a theory that we're testing. There's more LA companies or toy companies based in LA than anywhere else in the world. What's this connection between the entertainment capital and play?
Yeah, well, I think you just said a lot of it right there in your short statement. I mean, we know there's a rich tradition of importing into Los Angeles and on the West Coast in general. So you would have had, Los Angeles would have had, in the West Coast in general, would have had a lot of great importers of product, toy product and all other product in the 70s and 80s. So there would have been a large amount of toy companies just here because of that alone, their access to China and other parts of Asia to bring product into the country here. Follow that up with the fact that this is Hollywood. This is, all the major studios are pretty much here. You know, the entertainment capital of the world. There's nothing more entertaining than toys, certainly for the first 15 years of your life. It just seems to make sense that Disney and Warner Brothers and Universal and you name your studio of importance, and they all are, Nickelodeon, whatever, most of those companies are here and they're influential in kids' lives. They are putting TV and media together that kids want to see, and because of that, the toy companies, they need to be a part of it, and they need to have those relationships, and that's why it makes so much sense for so many of those companies to be here. They can not only have relationships with the studios, but they can get the right people working for them too. They'll have access to licensing and creative and media and TV people with that kind of background that will make their companies better.
For sure. Well, Ryan, last question.
Yeah.
What does Kid at Heart mean to you?
Kid at heart. I mean, I think, you know, everything kind of goes back to Arnie a bit as kind of the consummate role model. You have to enjoy what you do. And if you can build a culture and a company around that kid at heart mentality, being part of the right team, never losing touch with that childhood happiness of just the joy of playing. One of the things that we did back in the day at Funrise was we would have a lot of development meetings, and sometimes we'd go back and focus on what was your favorite toy when you were a kid. Well, it's pretty amazing because in a lot of times those toys circled right back around, and we reinvented them and put some technology into them or added a different curve to it and made the item better than it was in the 70s or 80s when a lot of us grew up playing with toys. And it was right back in the center of the toy industry again and important again. A lot of the great classic toys in our industry never leave for that reason. We just keep them up with the times and shine them up and put a new commercial on or a new TV,
YouTube influence.
Exactly. But those classic toys stay with us for decades and decades.